Good morning, everybody.
Morning,
This is
John.
Lancaster Woodturners Thursday morning coffee hour, and I was recording that very interesting discussion, so I'll probably add it to the video for this week. This is coffee hour number 102 for May 12th, 2022. Welcome back, all of you. Let me see. I see a bunch of waving. This is a show and tell morning. I'm going to give you, let me see, we do have an announcement next week, next Thursday, the 19th. We do expect to have Nick Cook as our guest star. Nick is, I think, well known to pretty much all of you. He's probably the most popular demonstrator at AAW events, and he's written probably as much as anybody, if not more, for the Journal over the last many years. So I think that's going to be a very entertaining morning. Let's see what else. We just posted all the Lancaster Club stuff from last 2 weeks, including the May meeting and Barry's demo. And we also have sliced out of last week's coffee hour the follow-up discussion of vacuum chucking. So there's 2 vacuum chucking tapes out there that you can watch that are, if you're into that, there's a ton of information there. And we have Ray has agreed to do a demo at some point when he can get whatever's on his lathe off of his method using a very thin gasket. So I'm very much keen to see that and understand how that works. So let me see, show and tell more. Anybody else got any announcements? Let me go back to a gallery view for a second and see if we got any other announcements lurking out here. No announcements. Okay. Would you like to participate in show and tell this morning? Use raise hand if you would, please. I only see 3 up there. Who else is going to show us stuff today? If you're new here, especially, we'd love to see love to have you introduce yourself. There's a bunch of people here who have never done that. This might be your moment if you got some slides handy. Okay. We'll of course continue to accept raised hands throughout the hour and see who shows up. I also want to, while I'm giving you information, mention that the open forum for club leaders wrestling with hybrid meetings that we started out of this group now has a mailing list of more than 100 names representing more than 50 clubs. We had a first meeting last April 18th, and we're having the second meeting on May 16th with a focus on audio issues. That has turned so far showing all the signs of being a very much needed initiative, and it's thanks to you guys who got it kicked off, because when Belcher and I said, well, let's try this, it was people from this group that responded, and so we got a very good liftoff and good start. So thank you all for that. And if any of you are wrestling with hybrid meetings on behalf of your club and you'd like to get into that session, just let me know, and we will give you the invite for the Zoom meeting. Okay, let's see. Michael Brazo, you're up there at the top. I'm going to show a video a little later on. Let's look at you. What do you have? What are you going to show us today?
One question, John, with respect to the hybrid meeting thing, do you have a limit on the number of participants on that?
100, and we'll see what happens as we go forward.
Yeah, okay.
What I'm thinking about that is if we won't get 100 this time out, I don't think, but we might get well over 50. And if it starts to push 100, then we'll see about getting $50 a month to get a bigger Zoom license.
Yeah, okay. No, just when Mike was talking about his depth gauge, I went out to my shop and grabbed mine. So I remember years ago when I hosted Bonnie Klein, she gave us a small one for doing boxes, but I used to turn 14, 15-inch bowls. So it's very simple, Jim, to use it. So this is a piece of 1x2 and a 1/4-inch dowel. So just set it in, and then you can, set your depth that you want and measure what you've got in your bowl.
That was not my question. That was not my question. I have a mechanical from Harbor Freight that works like that. I was talking about the side of a vessel.
You got a laser video.
Okay, I didn't know if there was any easy way short of the 30-year practice or.
There is. You can use
the double calipers that Thorby sell will go to a certain extent, or Keith Tompkins' calipers are excellent as well.
Well, you can also do the David Ellsworth method, which is a bent piece of wire.
Yeah,
it doesn't cost you anything, and it's very effective, and it doesn't take too long to learn how to do it, and you have no investment. So if you screw it up, you can always make another.
John, the challenge with the calipers is the same thing Trent has with his laser. When you get around the corner, you have to be 90 degrees or it doesn't read right.
Well,
It's on the straight side that it reads right, but when you come up around the neck, it's hard to get a calipers, and maybe that's where Ellsworth thing would work because it's a bendable wire. I haven't tried that. I have a calipers, but it lies to me because it can't read up there.
So Jim, I posted in the comments section about a camera system that I put together using an old computer monitor. It's really inexpensive pieces to hook up together. It's probably less than $100 to put it all together, frankly.
Yeah.
And a camera system will solve your problem because you don't have to worry with going around the corners, and it makes it a lot faster and easier.
Yeah, Trent Bosch's visualizer is great, but not at $750. I got monitors. I have GoPros out the bag, you know.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I just got to figure a way to mount it so it doesn't vibrate crazy, you know, as you're going in and out. I should probably look at what you got going there.
So in terms of a mounting, usually you can get a mounting for whatever hollowing system you have. For a laser usually is common, but you could make one, and it's just an L shape that bolts to your hollowing, up where it won't, and then make sure it's going to clear whatever your steady rest is, because that you need to be able to go over that.
Yeah, I think I want to try to put one together for myself just for the fun of it. But also, I just think Trent's idea is marvelous, but he also will not sell pieces parts, which I understand. Sure. Exactly. Sure.
One of the things, Jim, that I think people don't pay attention to, or maybe they do, but don't realize it, is sound. And that is that as you, if you're hollowing from the top down, as you get towards the edge, particularly if you get towards the edge or get down, the sound of the wood starts to vibrate at a higher and higher frequency. So it just goes up, So you sort of learn to listen for that frequency, and that's how you tell whether you're getting too thin. Well, how you tell when you're getting thin or not.
And then Doug, the big yell at the end is really pretty loud decibels when you go through. So you know that you've gone through when that sound happens. So.
Jim, are you having problems with hollow forms or bowls?
Hollow forms. I have no problem with bowls.
Okay, I got you. Then that's a little different.
Yeah, that when you guys were talking about it, I said, how do you get that inside a hollow form to measure? So. But no, I got you on that one. No, it's the hollow form vessels, and that kind of bases
But pre-drilling can help a lot, putting a depth hole.
Yep, I do that. But
as you get to the closer to your finish, stop the lathe and put a cool light bulb inside and see what the color is showing through the wall thickness all the way down.
Don, that gets scary because if I see light shining, that means I'm awful close to coming through. So,
well, Jim, that's the point. Have you ever seen those little lights that Cindy Drozda makes for? You've got magnets on them.
Yeah.
You stick one of those on your cutting tool, right close to your cutting tool. Tape it to the bar, and do a test piece, and you'll find out that when you get to about 1/4 inch, you can kind of see it coming, and when you get down to 1/8 of an inch, it gets brighter. And that's probably one of the cheapest and simplest ways. And different woods will have different translucency, but it really lets you know how close you are to coming through. And if you want to use a camera, earlier, Mike Golka, one of our Edmonton Woodturners, did a video, and he took a $25 camera and an old laptop, and he was cutting down to like a 1/16 of an inch with no problem at all. And he knows exactly where his cutter is, on the bottom, on the side, underneath, the top. So it's worth looking at that video to see how he set it up. It's really, really simple and inexpensive. I think he done it for like $25. So
I watched that video
Mike
last
Golka.
week. That's a very good video, and it's a very simple and clean method as well.
Yeah.
The other way to do that is with a Veritas style gauge. Does anyone have experience? Maybe I can put up a picture of one here.
Yeah.
Is that one of those ones that snaps open and closed? Yeah. The only problem with those is that that tells you after the fact.
Yep.
No, I disagree. I mean, I use them all the time. The key is to understand the snapback and what you're actually looking at. But I mean, I have that really large one too, and you can do it with 10, 12-inch vessels and be able to very carefully, and you can see where this is set. You can get to very small thicknesses with these. Anyway, I just thought I would share that.
I have one of those as well. I don't use it as much as I thought I would because the light system was the second one I used, and then after watching Mike do his, I use cameras now because it's an evolution. You got to walk before you can run, and you got to run.
Yep.
That's it's an evolution.
The other thing I like about the camera is that you can actually do it in 2 passes. So I'll use like a hunter tool to clean out a whole bunch of stuff, and then I'll use a scraper tool like a teardrop, to get a much smoother surface. So you can see when you've gotten down to that 1/4 inch with the hunter tool, and then go to the 1/8 inch with a scraper very easily. And then the other thing I would say though is if you do go to camera, do check it periodically as you're doing your cuts, because vibration will vibrate it out of a whack with where you think it is.
And for making apparatus for mounting the camera, you can use the same stuff that they sell online for mounting phones, for selfies and phone masts. I've got a whole lot of that in our meeting room. It's very, $10 here and $15 there, but you can get a very sturdy arm that telescopes with a clamp to clamp it on, and then another clamp that your camera will screw right into, because they almost all have a 1/4 inch hole in them or a 1/4 inch thread.
And then you tape a piece of plastic over your monitor, and then you just draw on the plastic where your head is.
Mike uses saran wrap. You just put saran wrap over your monitor, and then you can you can draw on the saran wrap, and then when you're doing the next one, put a new piece of saran wrap on.
That was going to be my next question. How do you protect the monitor? Because saran wrap. I never thought about that. That sounds like a good reason to steal it from my wife's cabinet. So
pretty cheap too.
The advantage to the plastic sheets though is if you turn the cutter as you're going in, you can just turn the plastic sheet, to match your cutter.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Jeez. Can you dial it in, Rick? Maybe you can dial it in.
Well, you take
now you're getting to a Trent Bosch.
Take your Etch-a-Sketch apart and use the little knobs, and you can set it up.
I'd like to mention another topic. This wasn't why I had my hand raised, but I have a Nova DVR now. The one big mistake they made in my book is the controls. Their control panel is one of those dimple things. You know what I mean? Do you guys have lathes that have dimples on? Why can't they give me a knob for on and off rather than little dimples I have to find when I'm turning with my looking out of the side of my eye? Some engineer wasn't thinking. I like the electronics. I like the way it works, but selecting the speed and turning it on and off is a dimple process, and I suspect a failure eventually. But any of you guys have comments about that?
Well, that's the new lathe topic, really, that if anybody has anything, commentary on any of the lathes on the market right now, let's take a couple minutes and air it out.
Oh, well, my question to Jim on that dimple thing, is there anything to do with so that you have a better touch of where the position is? Fingers, because there are times when you can't necessarily look exactly where you're looking, and you need to have a feel for, for where your setting is. I have
a remote offs. They're little tiny remotes. I don't know why they make them like that hangs on metal, but the button for off is very small, and the previous guy had it set only for off, which I'm fine with. But you got to find even that little dimple if it's hanging on your lathe or something. So yeah, Doug, I don't know. It just seems to me engineering, it's like one of those guys designed it but never used it. It's a great design and it's economical to build, but geez, it ain't.
Jim, I think that's been changed in the newer versions of the Nova. They went to a knob. Because that was a common complaint right from the beginning on the Nova.
Yeah, and you can update the control system, to put that new one in, which is what I did. And it works well, because now you've got 10 buttons, dimples, if he calls them, because if you press them twice, you can have the things. You can have a lot of preset speeds, and if you want to change it just quickly, you just hit the knob and just turn it. I mean, I've had the DVR since they've been out, and it's my primary lathe, and I love it.
I love the lathe, And mine is the latest software. It has that row of 5 dimples at top, F1 through 5, right? And then the speed dial on the side or in the bottom, I think. But the on and off is still a dimple, right? Or don't I have the latest one, Robert?
They're still dimples, but basically they, I don't have any problems with them. I mean, I just hit them and they go off or on.
I've had some surprises, accidentally hitting the dimple twice and getting the speed that's on the second row and turning on. It's a surprise when it's twice the speed. So
Have a foot switch for on and off.
Ah.
So you can always have the switch by your foot wherever you are. You don't have to look at your eyes or at the switch box or anything. You've got the pedal there.
It just kills the power to your lathe, right?
That's all. Stops.
That's gonna piss off the electronics on mine.
Well, you've got a big red button on and off on yours, don't you, Jim? Emergency off?
Nope.
The new one, I just Googled the Nova Galaxy and it shows a big red emergency on off button.
Well, maybe then I can get a upgraded DVR electronics. I'll look at that, but I have the latest. I thought I had the latest one on it. So
I noticed Michael put a piece in the chat about something else. What did you about the back to the hollowing systems?
Yeah, just on the support arm for the hollowing system. I built the Jameson system like almost 20 years ago. And I put a camera system together, but I get a lot of vibration with a wooden dowel arm. I'm wondering if anyone used something like a cold rolled steel arm, which has more mass, would that damp out the vibration?
It could be more rather than less.
Are you talking about the one above the cutter that you're going to mount the camera on?
Yeah.
You're going to be a lot heavier.
Yeah,
You know, Michael,
I'm just wondering.
I can tell you
damp out the vibration.
the vibration doesn't really come in that arm. It comes in the whole mechanism. You know, when you hit some,
it translates up. Yeah. And then sort of, you know.
Yeah, I don't see harmonics being built up in that arm. I'll tell you what, I can, if you want, I can set mine up for next week and we can show it what it looks like.
I can look at your note too.
Yeah, set it up for 2 weeks from now because we'll have Nick next week. But yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Great idea.
Okay, unless there's more on these two topics, I'm going to move us along to the next share. Is that okay with you guys?
Shall I remove the spotlights, John?
Yeah, remove the spotlights because I'm going to put it on Randy. He's up there next.
Okay.
Hello, Randy.
Hello. Two things for Jim. One of the things I did, I have an ancient DVR XP, and what I did was I put a piece of the hook piece of Velcro on the off button.
Okay.
Simple.
I just stuck it on there. It's easy to find. The other thing is I have a knee switch, one of those emergency off switches, right where my knee hits when I'm standing at the lathe.
Does that kills the power to the lathe? That's the way it stops. Does it stop right away?
Oh yeah.
So the Velcro is sort of like Braille for a blind turner.
Yeah.
Well, the robot, the Scout anyway, has a red bar from one end to the other at the base of the ways, and you bang that with your knee or your hand or your thigh or whatever you can reach, shuts the lathe down cold. It works very well.
Yep. Two things. I am sending out some pens for the Freedom Pens project. 10 pens, 20 pens, 30 pens, 40 pens, and I don't have a label on this one yet.
How do you know where to send them, Randy?
That was my other thing. I highly recommend, if anybody is interested in yet another Zoom meeting, go to Worldwide Woodturners, which Captain Eddie Castellan is organizing, and it's on Wednesday night. It begins about 7 o'clock Eastern time. And I know Mike comes by every now and then, and it's a really interesting time.
How big a group comes on for that?
Pardon?
How big a group comes on for that?
Oh, there's usually between 80 and 100 people.
That's a big group to manage. Yeah.
Yeah. They do well. They have a number of co-hosts, and everybody works together, and it works out pretty well. But on their website is a list of names for each branch of the service, and I'll see if I can find it. I will post it in the chat.
Very cool.
That's it.
Okay. Back to gallery view for me so I can see everybody. Dave Delo, what do you have today?
Hey, well, just one more hollow form measuring tool from Joukowsky. Okay, so you get about 9 inches deep on this one, and it's very accurate. I just wish there was a mark or you know, some type of scribe line that tells you how thick your wall is. But so I just do little pencil marks on there. But just another tool to buy. Okay?
That's like a professional version of the bent coat hanger, that one.
Yeah, exactly. But what I wanted to share this morning is, you know, I've been on the look for better respiratory protection for years. And then COVID hit, and you could hardly get any PAP or R's out there, you know. So I've used everything and have been using, you know, from the cloth mask to the 3M half mask to finally settled in on an original Trend Air Shield that I'd been using for years. And, you know, that was getting a little heavy. And so I'd always wanted to get a PAPR. And so, but probably like most people, you know, 13, 14, 1,500 bucks was a little bit steep. So I saw on the AAW site under the health and safety banner, there was a discussion, I think it was back in December, about respiratory protection and or discussion, respiratory discussion. And it was one of the people came up with this Optrail model that this welding supply house over in the eastern part of PA sells at half price. So I had mulled about buying one, and then he was out of stock, and then he was out of stock for a couple months, and then it finally came back on sale for $550. So I figured, you know, with the new, you know, Trend and Peak Safety has stuff now, and you know, there's a whole lot more choices nowadays for face masks and everything. But this one, you know, they're like $400 or $500. So this one I felt was right where I wanted to be, money wise, anyway. But it's the helmet is safety rated. It's got a HEPA filter in it, pre-filters, and you know, the battery life is 18 hours.
So you wearing that as a belt pack?
Yes. So this goes around your belt and connects with the hose here. Okay.
How noisy is that?
It's got a little whine to it, but I figured for the price that I paid, I'll put up with that. But
hey,
anyway,
so Dave, can you put hearing protection, you know, the kinds that come down over the sides on that?
You can.
Because I know the Trend has that, but I heard they were really bad.
I never considered that feature to be important to me when looking at stuff. So, you know, of course, when I'm using the chainsaw, I use hearing protection, but just around the lathe, I've never considered that to be important for me.
Does that helmet seem sturdy enough for you for what it might have to resist?
I'm very satisfied with it. And I don't know the luck of the Irish or whatever, but I think like 2 weeks after I purchased this, which is about 2 months ago, the price went up to $750. But still, at $750 now, it's a deal, I think, compared to, you know, the VersaFlow and what is it, Airstream and all of that type of equipment.
Would you put the information where you got that in the chat, and then I can paste it in the follow-up email?
I will. Okay.
Cool. Any more comments on this? Want to go back?
Yeah, how well is the seal? How well is the seal on the?
Oh, excellent. It's top notch.
Can you put it on?
If you have a beard on the bottom of your face, just around the chin.
Put it on. Let's see it.
Yeah. So here we go like this. I pull it down.
Okay, thanks. Yep.
It has that kind of an internal bib that goes down under your chin.
Yeah, it's just like my trend. Okay, that's fine.
How do you think that
Right.
is over
Trend
a
does
beard?
get heavy.
How do you think that is over a beard?
I don't have one, but
It's
I really
probably not
couldn't-
an issue because it's blowing air out, right?
Yeah.
Blowing air out, right? Okay,
Yeah, no, it should be fine.
very interesting stuff. Any more questions?
Yeah, I had a piece come off my lathe and hit me in the head on my trend, and I was glad I had it on.
Yeah, I agree. It's heavy, but basically it does protect.
Yeah. So yours looks like it has enough rigidity there that it would take some kind of smack in the face.
it's what do you call this? Z is it what, 81 plus
87?
or whatever that number is plus, it has that rating to it. So it's just like all the other ones. You know, if you took a big chunk, you know, a 5-pound chunk came out of a piece, you know, I don't care which product you have, you're going to take a beating. Okay.
Mhm. Okay, thank you for that. That's always an ongoing topic of interest. I've been looking for something like that myself, and you've got it within my price point. With the $1,300 and $1,800 units, we're not.
Right.
And I also I see Kai is on screen. Are you there, Kai? Yeah, you have that system where you put on the belt, so it's like a shoulder harness to hold up the battery stuff. And some of us with a tummy might need that. But you were going to wear it for a few months and see if you used it or if you didn't. What's your results after using that for a few months?
Yeah, it's fine. I like it a lot, and I think the VersaFlow system, the 3M VersaFlow system, is similar to the one Dave has. So it's also the helmet thing, and I had some impact from a piece of wood flying off the lathe, and it protected really well. It has got thin covers that you can put onto the shield so that it doesn't get scratches. So the only thing that was left by this impact was a little scratch on this protection layer that is removable. It uses the hose, same thing, and it's also got the belt with the filter system and the battery pack. Mine is only good for 8 hours, the battery pack, but the way I use it, 8 hours is enough if I recharge it at the end of the day and then wear it again the next day. So the system is really fine, but it's pricier than the one Dave showed. So I guess Dave's system is a good alternative then.
Well, no, now that you've had it for a while, do you use it consistently?
Depends on what kind of work I'm doing. I use it definitely when I do bandsawing, because there I cannot get rid of all the dust that is produced by the bandsaw. I use it when I do sanding, especially bowls on the lathe, and I use it when I clean up my workshop and create a lot of dust from the floor and things like this. When I do pen turning, normally I've got a funnel that is big enough and that draws away all the dust from sanding. So I don't use it in this case. But for all bigger work and for cleaning up and bandsawing, it's really great.
Excellent. Good report. Thank you. I'm going to go back to a gallery so I can see everyone. Any more comments on the air shields and these other things before we move along? Bob Mathers, what do you have to say?
Okay. I hope I'm not being too casual with this. Is it safe to say most of the gentlemen who've been talking have a shop that's enclosed, and that's why they're going to getting all this equipment? I know I just work out of my garage. I don't have a big shop, and often I'll just roll my lathe right out in the driveway and work out in the sunshine. but I use I've got my face shield. I've got an N95, one of those one-way masks where when you exhale, it blows it out, but you can't breathe in. And then oftentimes I'll just put a fan behind me or off at one angle and blow the dust away from me. And then on other occasions, I'll just use a shop vac near my lathe to suck off some of the sand if I'm sanding, especially. Am I being too casual here, or?
No,
so Bob, the OSHA published a standard for dust, and they said for a 2-car garage, actually in an 8-hour period, it was like a tablespoon of dust in the air is the industry standard now, is the max. So if you're in an open area like that and it's blowing away from you, you're probably okay. To me, the measure I would use is if you're snotting stuff out the next day or that night, then you're not. But that fine dust can get into you, and that's what really hurts you. And you got to watch out for that stuff.
I've worked the way you are, Bob, for many years, mostly outside and, let's letting the air carry it away, 3 seasons of the year, or in the doorway of a garage. I think that's pretty effective. It's when you get into the enclosed space and fine sanding that you really have to watch out for it. And it can really be insidious over a long period of time.
I think if you're turning exotic woods, you might want to ratchet it up one more level, even if outside, with woods that tend to be toxic.
What do you mean, right?
Still be very cautious, even outside, I think.
Well, how about having a
cautious when I'm doing spalted wood?
Yeah, spalted wood actually is not any more of a risk. You don't want to. All dust, wood dust, can cause serious problems. But Siri Robinson got a PhD in spalting and has written a book. She basically said the risk of spores or fungus from spalted wood is a kind of an urban myth. She didn't use those terms, urban myth, but she basically said you are not going to be growing those things in your lungs from breathing spalted wood.
Well, that's good.
It's no more dangerous than regular dust.
Most of it really is about particle size, and I think I heard it a couple of times. And even if you have a coarse mask is probably taking out the wrong things. It really is the fine particles that are the biggest danger. I did hear you say you had used an N95 mask, which would be taking out the small particles as well, probably pretty well. And that's the key. You want to keep this. And I think if you're inside or outside, those small particles sanding are still there.
Well, do you think, like I have a fiberglass worker's mask that fits around, has a rubber gasket. It's an N95 mask, but it's NIOSH rated for industrial use. I think it's pretty effective.
John, I think that one of the things people haven't also mentioned is that the mask for the nose is all well and good, but when you're sanding, if you don't have your proper eye protection on, you can get a lot of dust in your eyes, which is equally an irritant. Yeah. So having something, even I find that if I'm doing sanding, I have to put a face shield on regardless to keep the sanding dust from getting into my eyes.
I think the answer is to sand less, actually.
That is a good answer.
Okay.
To be as safe as possible.
Hey, I contacted Trend. I heard there was battery life problems with them. I contacted them, and they seemed to say that they had fixed whatever battery problems. I asked them if they were changing to lithium-ion batteries, and they said they are in Europe, I think in Australia, but not in the United States. So it was just kind of an interesting.
The biggest problem with those was not only the battery, it was the charger that was a dumb charger. And you had to plug it in, I think, for like 18 hours to get a full charge. Well, if you just left it on and go away and come back 3 days later, basically you do that a few times and you've destroyed your battery. That seemed to be the biggest issue. It wasn't a smart charger like we tend to have on all our lithium drill batteries.
You're right.
That's been fixed.
I got one of those Trent things that pissed me off to no end because the battery charger did not fit into the actual battery properly, and I actually tore the cord off the battery because it was too snug, a battery charger. And it's like I haven't used it since because I got so angry with Trend on them. But But yeah, it was a whole the connection between the battery and the charger and the battery and the face shield is really too tight on the old ones.
I had a different recall with them that had to do with the tightening of the headpiece, and they eventually sent me a new one, and it was never the same. And I think that's what caused me to essentially put it to the side and find something else.
Sarah, what's your comment about dust measurement?
Has anybody used any devices to actually measure the dust that they're generating in their shops and the devices that they have in place to collect that?
I didn't know there were any such device that would do that. Do you have any knowledge there?
I haven't done any measuring on the device, but the measuring I did do is I just recently installed a new dust collector in my shop, and I took an anemometer and I went around to all the places where I have my dust collection hoses. And so on my sander, I measure the actual velocity of the air coming off the sander, so I know how much air is going. And I have a 6-inch one now at my lathe, and I measured the velocity of the air coming off there, and I threw a whole bunch of dust up in the air just to watch where the natural airflows were. And every 3 minutes, all the air in my 24 by 24 shop goes through a HEPA filter. So every 3 minutes, this dust collector is doing a fantastic job. But I didn't measure the particle size. I just got a HEPA filter and I did the velocity and the volume calculations and say, well, every 3 minutes I'm changing the air or putting all the air in my shop through a filter. That really helped.
What system are you using?
I think it's I bought it from Canadian Woodworkers, so it's an FX Cyclone. It's a 2 horsepower FX Cyclone, 1500 CFM, and it's got about a 3 foot tall HEPA filter, which captures, I think, 95 or 96% of the 0.1 micron, whatever the.
So that's a big canister on top of a bag, is that right?
No, it was a Cyclone separator, so the big chunks go into a tub, and then the filter's beside it with a small bag on the bottom. Okay. And I went through all of the specs of all the ones that were available. And this particular model, I think it's made in, it's either Korea or Taiwan, but Canadian Woodworker brings it in. I think it's called FX, an FX, so I forget the numbers on it, but it's got 10 inches of water column draw, and all of the other competitors were like 6 and 8 or whatever. And then when I tested the velocities, I leave a 6-inch and a 4-inch open all the time so that the blower can pull the maximum amount of air through the filter rather than choking it down so that it has a high negative pressure at a particular device. I read an article about airflow going through the filter is more important than having the high suction at a particular location. So any dust doesn't go into the hose right at that location. If you got another 6-inch one open about 2 feet away or 3 feet away, any dust that does come out is immediately drawn into the filter. So my view on it was the more air I can put through the filter means my whole shop just stays cleaner. And the decibel rating was around 60, so it wasn't bad.
Okay.
I think the simple answer to Sarah's question, though, is that there isn't a simple way to measure the size of the particles and the volume that you're essentially being exposed to at any given time. I think you can do the kind of things that's being suggested is how many times are you turning over the air, what is the minimal size or maximal size of the particles you're taking out. But to actually know what is hitting your face and what size those particles are, I don't know of an easy way to do that.
Some things are non-intuitive. There was one of the woodworking magazines several years ago that was evaluating the various overhead air filtration units that have a bag inside, and intuitively you'd think a high speed would move the air through it faster and clear your shop faster. What they're finding is the higher speed kept the particles circulating in the air longer.
So volume is the issue versus speed. You want to move a big gulp of air.
Well, you want the filter to be working within its design range so the filter can be more effective. And the filters get more effective as they get plugged.
And the whole topic becomes very, very complex. And a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing because it makes you feel like you're safe. You've really got to do some serious research if you're really serious about protecting your lungs.
Yeah.
Hey, Sarah, if you have any contacts with people in the safety community, like at a community college or, in a trade school or at a factory, those people can probably bring a tool over and use it at your house, or, I would recommend that, because not only just exactly what Mike was saying, they know the facts behind this stuff, what's good and what's bad, but they may have the ability to bring a tool and measure it for you too.
That's a good suggestion. Yeah, because they are quite expensive.
And you don't need to do them often.
No,
Right.
you need a baseline. You need to know what you're working with and understand your own situation. Well, on that, I think that's a very good discussion, and I thank everybody for playing into that one. Mike, you got your hand up, and you've had the floor. You want to have it some more and finish up? What do you got to say today?
I had a couple items for show and tell. Before I understood Jim wasn't dealing with bowls, but here's my more sophisticated one. It's got a plumbing fixture where you tighten against this brass rod for primarily bowls. For boxes, I use something. Here's was my first one, something similar. This works great for boxes, but then I bought an inexpensive caliper set from Harbor Freight for about $10. It also included this little jobby, so that's nice for boxes, and you get a bunch of other cheap calipers, but this was the best one in the group. And then when we talked about before, where we had that dust collection, here is an example of my chuck where I use a threaded glue block, and I use a rotary adapter on mine, and I use PVC mounted on a bottom plate of MDF that I seal with a couple of coats of polyurethane. The front cover, it might be wood, but it's probably MDF. Same thing. You coat it with polyurethane, and then for this particular one, I just put a very thin foam. All that business about gasket to me was just way too complicated and expensive. I find that a 1/16 inch closed cell fun foam that you can get from a craft store like Michael's or Hobby Lobby for about $1 for about a 12-inch piece. And sometimes I glue them on. This one I didn't. I just take them on and slip one on when I need it. Here's a smaller one, and here's the example of that fun foam. I just glue it on there, and every now and then it'll get a little wear and tear. You might need to replace it, but I haven't replaced it. They've got a little,
How thick is that stuff, Mike?
It's a 1/16 inch thick. It's very, very thin. The thicker you get, the more movement you're going to get, and that becomes an issue. This is very thin against a wooden backing. You don't get any movement, but it's thick enough where it seals, and it is that closed cell foam. And I just find this so much cheaper and easier than trying to, and less complicated than trying to put a gasket on it. And I have multiple ones because you can make them easily. This one, I just stacked some MDF instead of using a polyurethane, and then just hollowed it out. And then again, sealed it with a couple of coats of polyurethane because we know MDF will transmit air. And, works for me.
What are you using to draw the vacuum?
I use, what kind of pump?
Yeah, what's your setup?
Yeah, I use a gas pump similar to what Woodcraft and Craft Supply sells, but I got one used. They're quite expensive now. At the time, I chased a guy that sold about 4 of them about every week or two, and I had to keep raising my bid before I finally got it. But that was a number of years ago. I've got an article. I'll post a link to my website. I've got an article on my system that shows my setup. I have mine mounted on the wall. The controls and the dial is everything within reach. I can just reach out and grab it on the wall, so I don't have to worry about suspending it or anything. And like I say, I use a rotary adapter. Craft Supply has a really good rotary adapter that's very reasonably priced. That has a couple of bearings and a couple of O-rings, and you just slip it into your, depending on, of course, your lathe. I've got a Powermatic. It just fits well, just slips in, and then I don't have to worry about that rod and, you know, adding rods to every single vacuum chuck. I just put in that rotary adapter, and it spins like a top.
If you
Did you have to remove the wheel off the back? Because I have the same lathe.
No, you just slip that rotary adapter in there. There's a picture of the rotary adapter I've got in this article that I've got on my website. I'll pull that up and
give us the link in the chat so I can circulate it. Yeah.
Mike, I also use that foam on the outside of the wood instead of glue. Just wrapped it around the wood section to act as a seal as well, and it worked really well for a vacuum chuck. So just in case your entire wood piece in that foam, really cheap, works well. Anyway.
I haven't seen that. I guess if I was getting, you're talking about if you're getting some leakage on the piece?
Yeah, it was because it was a piece of oak and I just couldn't figure out where it was, and but it was just some leakage, and it sealed it up completely, so I could find, rather than gluing all over the place and everything else like that, and
you're talking about using a stretch wrap?
No, I used that foam that you're talking about.
Really?
Yeah, because it's closed foam, and it just made the line overlap, and it sealed it up completely. So it's so anyway, it's just a little thin layer of that foam around the outside of the vacuum chuck. It worked really well. So anyway,
I used some cling film for the same problem, because there was airflow through the wood, and just put the cling film around the porous piece of wood, fixed it with some sticky tape so that it doesn't come off, and that worked brilliant. So that's another option. But I've got a question for you, Mike. You showed two different types of vacuum chucks, one using the pipe and one using the stacked wood. Is there an advantage when you use the pipe?
No, it was just the way I made them at the time. I think probably for the smaller one, I didn't have a small piece of PVC. So I used the stacked one, and it was fast and easy to make. But for the bigger ones, I felt like I saw an article because I had a big piece of this PVC pipe from somewhere. It was I think easier and lighter to make them like this than to make them fairly deep instead of stacking them and hollowing the thing out. I think this was just faster and easier.
Okay.
I've taken the same approach Mike has and have had very, very good luck with those over the years. I use the pump from the Frugal guy, and I've been very pleased with that. I've had it for a number of years.
I hear good things about him, and if anybody's looking at buying one, just do a Google. I think it's Frugal Vacuum Chuck or something. But the guy recycles and a bunch of pumps that are pretty good. I'd be concerned about a 2.5 CFM Harbor Freight pump, but not moving enough, not giving you enough suction. But I guess it depends on the size of your pieces and size of your chucks. But mine moves 4.5 CFM, and it'll hold just about anything.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mike. I'm going to go to Ray. What do you got, Ray?
Thank you, John. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. This is an Ellsworth, no moving parts. I mean, this is all you need right here. So, before you go out and buy anything, Jim, just, try doing this. Is a piece of really, really stiff aluminum. And I got this from Ellsworth himself. And I figured if he uses it and he says this will work, it's fine. On the dust, if you're wondering, there's a couple of things I think that we're missing. I understand the whole dust thing, but the fact that people say, "Oh, I've circled," the air circulates so many times. Dust doesn't work that way. If you got a layer of dust at your shop, you suck the air, make a cycle. Every time you move through the shop, that's airborne. And if you don't believe that, when you're done turning, you think you're done, go over and run your finger on a bench top. If you got dust on your finger, that was in the air. You're breathing that anyway. Go in there, turn the lights out, turn a flashlight on. You see anything floating in the air, that's what you're breathing. And the fact that you're done and you walk out, you know, it's not gone. So I was at a guy's shop one day, and I asked him, so what do you got? Well, I got this dust collector. The other side of the shop must have had 3/4 of an inch of dust on stuff. So that never stops. You take something off the shelf, the stuff's now airborne again. So, you know, really, we're not doing a real good job. So if you go in the shop and you look and you go and the guys that go, well, I never clean up. You can wear all you want, but when you take that mask off, that stuff's still in the air. So maybe we all need to ratchet up what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Were you going to show work as well, Ray, or was that what you wanted to do?
That was it. You know, you talked about the Ellsworth thing, and I had one. And that's how simple it is.
Very cool. Okay. Kai, you still have your hand up. You got something to show today? Or shall I go?
Yeah, I just wanted to show another device for measuring wall thickness. Just let me share this. Hope it works. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the Ellsworth idea using wire. This is fence wire, which is a bit stiffer, and then this electric thing here, and a little turned wooden dowel that has got marks on it for measuring the wall thickness. And then you can, let me see whether I can find my arrow here. Yeah, you can set it to 0 here. And then once you pull it out, you can read the wall thickness on the side. So that is really easy and inexpensive and yeah, quick to build.
That's it.
Yeah, so that's the open version. Right. So okay. That's it.
Okay. Anybody else this morning? You all gone silent. Okay, I'm going to use the last few minutes to show you a little video I made the other day. Is that okay with you guys?
Sure.
This might run us 1 or 2 minutes over, but not much. Tetrahedron from turned rods with rare earth magnets. You can make all the planktonic solids and many other interesting geometric forms using wooden rods with rare earth magnets shaped like these. You need 6 rods like this to make a tetrahedron and 30 for an icosahedron or dodecahedron. Here's how you make them. Scribe 7/16 on pear wood blocks and saw to width. Then use the chop saw and a stop block to cut exactly to length. Here's a set of more than 30 5-inch blanks. Eyeball the center of the blank and make a divot with the awl. Seat the spherical magnet on wood, not quite touching the cylindrical magnet inside the rod. To reproduce a Platonic set, make a set of gauges including a magnetic polarity tester. You need the little bamboo dowels to help seat magnets in the bored holes. Gauge or measure the correct depth, set a hard stop on the drill press, and bore a test hole in one wand. Verify the depth you need to seat the magnet and rebore if necessary. Now the other end, aided by the trusty vertical block jig. Okay, here's what we're going to make a bunch of, and here's the lathe set up with a jam chuck and the headstock chuck, and the tailstock live center, a cone seated in the drilled hole. This keeps the blank perfectly centered on the holes you just bored. Align the tool rest with the lathe ways and make sure it clears the chuck. The slippy mounting forces you to turn with a light touch. You can increase the tension to get a little more grip. Rough the blank around using the trusty 3/4 inch spindle roughing gouge. Mark the shoulders in the center of this very simple turning. Start in the center and work to the ends, using the versatile spindle roughing gouge. Okay, for the tetrahedron, you need 6 turned wands, 4 of them magnetized north-south, and 1 north-north, and 1 south-south. And here's one way they go together. For magnet management, you need that polarity tester. With a stack of known polarity, push the bottom magnet into the top board hole. And without rotating either the magnet stack or the rod, insert the top magnet into the bottom board hole. This makes a north-south rod. Tap them home with a plastic mallet and the bamboo skewer. Confirm polarity, mark with a Sharpie, and add 1 drop of superglue to seal in the color. Octahedron. Pentagram. Icosahedron. The 5 Platonic solids. Wood.
You're gonna make a DNA molecule next, John. In case you happen to have a couple thousand rods, you know.
Yeah, I know. You could go to that extent. You could get quite an investment in magnets, as I can tell you too. 30 to 50 cents each for the little rare earth magnets, and even a set of 6 rods. You're going to use 12 magnets plus 6 spheres or 4 spheres, and they're expensive. And that brings us to the end of coffee hour. Thank you very much. Thank you for indulging me in a little video. See you all next week.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Bye now.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.